Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to the Starcraft 2 Ownage Shack. It is David here bringing you Master League Quest episode 25 as promised. I am going to start releasing these once per week as per your requests, and yes, I will be doing mostly Master League as that seems to be what you guys really want to see, and to be honest, it is definitely the most fun thing for me to make. I really enjoy, basically getting your feedback and of course playing the games to make these videos. So this is a ladder game that I've played, of course, Protoss player, and it's on the map Shattered Temple. So as I'm sure many of you know by now, I feel like I don't even have to say this anymore, I do enjoy going mech in all matchups, and this is going to be no exception. Now Shattered Temple is a fantastic map for mech most of the time. The exception occurs, in my opinion, when you're crossbots on this map. If you're close positions or close by air, then mech really works pretty well, as you can sort of hug the wall on your way. Now, of course, crossbots is different. You got to go right through the middle, so it's a little bit more rough. But anyway, I'm going to go mech no matter what, because that is my resolution for for Season 4. Go mech only. Now, I will be using the Reaper Expand into mech for this particular game, and that is, of course, because I like the scouting intel you get with that Reaper. You can use the Avilo 2 barracks method, which is also fantastic. It's much more safe against all-ins, but the scouting isn't as good with that method. So it's personal preference. I do enjoy this one a bit more, though, because I think it does get you siege mode a little bit faster. Not 100% sure on that, though. But either way, that's what I'm going to be doing here, and you will notice that I have started my wall with that depot. I feel that when you're going for mech, you obviously need that wall, because if you get 4-gated or even simple Zealot Stalker pressure at about, the 4-minute, 45-second, 55-minute mark, that can be really rough if you don't have a wall off in time. So definitely suggest that for you guys. Now, as you can see, we'll be getting a Marine first before that Reaper, and I'm also putting a supply depot over there. Now the reason for that is just to spot. Now, believe it or not, well, I'm sure you guys actually do believe it, I've been Dark Templar dropped, Dark Templar rushed, basically on this map infinite amount of times. So I've learned that if you have a supply depot over there, you can spot the Warp Prism coming in, because that's typically the place that Protoss is going to try and drop you at. So, of course, if you have a depot there, you can see it, get your troops in time, and just defend that, because you really don't want to lose a game to Dark Templar. Trust me, it is the worst feeling in the world, aside from losing a game to a 6-pool or Baneling bust. Now, the Reaper is on his way, and I'm scouting around with that SCV, seeing what I could find. The main thing I'm looking for with that SCV is that he has 1 gas or 2 gas. Now, being a little bit greedy here, I am going to be going for the command center before my bunker, and you do need that bunker, by the way. You need to get that thing started by like the 4:15 mark on certain maps, or you're not going to be too happy when they walk up your ramp with a Zealot and a Stalker and you only have 1 Marine. That's pretty much auto lose, by the way. So now that I have the Reaper out, I can swap that barracks, make a factory in its place, and start that second gas, because you really need that gas as soon as possible when you start making siege tanks. I'll also be completing the wall off with that SCV there, make a final depot. The bunker's great, but if there's no wall, then they can just run by it and then you're screwed. So yeah, making a depot is definitely a good idea there. Also, in case you're wondering, an alternate means of walling off, one that Avilo uses quite often, this is best done with the 2 barracks method, is you put an engineering bay down there at about 33 supply. That's what he does. And of course you don't need the wall off as soon with his method, because he has approximately, 8 Marines by the time, or, sorry, not 8 Marines, he'll have more though. And as you can see, my wall-up just prevented that Zealot and Stalker from coming up, and because I saw those units come, I quickly send my Reaper to get the scouting information, because I know he's not sitting at his base. So I see everything I need to see. I see his 3 gateways and his gases. Well, I saw those earlier, and I'm pretty confident right now that it's just going to be a normal 3-gate expand. They were also still just regular gateways. They weren't warp gates yet, so I knew that it wasn't going to be a warp gate rush. Typically he would have chrono boosted that more if it were going to be a 4-gate or something, or even a 3-gate heavy pressure build. So I will be getting the engineering bay a little bit later than usual, and that engineering bay right there is too late if he goes for straight Dark Templar, but because I scouted him and he didn't get a really fast early gas, and I saw 3 gateways, I just know that there's very low chance that he's actually gone DTs this game. It does feel to me like a simple, 3-gate expand. And here's something nice. I had that Marine just scouting around for pylons, and I see him come in here with his probe to try and build one. Now this, while I'm happy about that, signaled to me that I needed to basically get some serious defense up, because I knew a rush was going to be coming. When Protoss makes a proxy pylon next to your base like that, that's really close, you just know that he's going to be doing some kind of pressure. So I will have a few SCVs nearby there eventually on auto repair, just in case he tries to push up the ramp. I do throw down a scan, and I see all 3 gateways being chrono boosted, and now my suspicions have been confirmed. He is indeed going to do some kind of pressure build, most likely a 2 base pressure because of how late it is in the game. I assume that he has gotten that expansion up. So, as you can see, here it comes with the siege tanks, marines, and I had that marine on the low ground to spot. I am able to repel that while I get my additional factories up. And as always, you want to be using that barracks as an add-on horror in order to, it just gets your units out faster if you can make the add-ons in advance of the actual factories. Now, when I saw him come up there like that, I decided that would be a perfect opportunity to send my SCV into his base, because I knew his army wasn't gonna, be around to stop it. And I was able to see his expansion. Of course, didn't manage to get all the way up the ramp, but nothing a little scan can't fix later on in the game. So, I will be sending a Marine out once more just to check to make sure he's not out there waiting for me to come down. Because if he's out there waiting for you and you come down the ramp, you are going to be in for a nasty surprise. That's called being GG'd. So, anyway, I see that it's all clear. We'll move siege tanks down about 1 at a time. You don't want to be putting those down really fast, or you risk again, and it's all about being conservative with mech. 3 bunkers on the low ground is absolutely necessary if you want to hold really strong immortal timings. You absolutely need those. And with 3 factories, I can now start those Hellions. So another thing that I've been struggling with in my game lately is getting supply blocked. I actually played a few games before this one that I was just supply blocked ridiculous amounts. So that's really my focus here, to try and not let that happen. Unfortunately, right now I am supply blocked, so that's not the greatest thing ever. But it's really something I think if I work on a bit more, I can easily make it to master, because right now my mechanics are not at the level they need to be. And I feel like that's an easier part of my game to improve than, say, memorizing build orders and strategies, which I really don't have the time or patience for as an engineering student. So, now that I have those bunkers filled up, I'm pretty safe. You need that turret as well, of course, for DTs. And you'll notice I have a siege tank in my main right now with the turret. That is just to protect against the Dark Templars. If he warps in up there and you don't have a turret ready, you will be screwed. Well, especially if you scan like that. I threw on another scan to try and see what he's doing. Still no information, so I'm a little bit concerned. The 3 sort of routes that I normally see people go against me when I go for mech is basically the Colossus response, which is basically I'm going to make Colossus and pretend you're going bio and hope that it works. It usually doesn't, by the way. If you respond correctly with 2 starports, you can crush Colossus builds. Then there's the Immortal route, which is probably the most common, especially after that range buff to the Immortal. They just get mass Immortals, and your response is, of course, to get Ghost for EMP. And then the final option they really have here is going for a bunch of Void Rays. And if you see that, well, you obviously need to throw up some starports. Turrets also do very well against Voids. So I will be sort of juking and jiving my Hellions around just to see what I can do. Can't really do much. His defense is pretty steadfast here. And as you see, the Zealots are slower than the Stalkers, so I'm going to just go right up there, get a few free Zealots. Always a good thing. I think I got about 3 Zealots there for free. And I'm going to try and take out that pylon as well that I was working on before. In case you're wondering, if you're ever in this situation with Hellions killing an Immortal, just do it. Because Immortals are actually quite terrible against Hellions. And Hellions do full damage against Immortal shields because they don't do more than 10 per whatever. What is it called? Pre-igniter flame? I forget. Man, that's actually really... Oh, wait, no. Infernal Flamethrower, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, my third base is well on its way. I did get the armories in advance of that third base, just because I want to be really, really solid with my upgrades this game. I'm investing in a long game here, not going to try a 2-base timing like I sometimes do. Now, as was suggested in my previous Mech TvP, episode 24, go check that out if you haven't already, basically it was suggested that I should go for Thors instead of mass Hellions, and I definitely agree with this. Now, the reason I'm getting Hellions right now, however, is because he has essentially not gone for Colossus yet. When he goes for Colossus, I feel that you really need those Thor, simply because Colossi have huge range and do splash damage to your Hellions, so they're going to get owned. If he's going for Mass Immortal, however, Hellions do a fairly decent job of, you know, buffering for your tanks. Now, this is a little bit sketch right here. I have to say, I feel like the move out was premature. I should have definitely waited for a few more tanks. It's very wide open, this map, your third. And so he tries to move up here, and if my tanks have been attacking those rocks, I deliberately didn't make them do that. I would have been completely screwed. Now you notice I target fire all of the stalkers with the siege tank so that I don't waste shots in immortals, and that's enough firepower to drive him right out of there with the siege tanks in the back. So very, very sensitive moment there. I'm going to erect a sensor tower just to make sure it doesn't happen again, so that I can safely get that third up. Now, as I was saying about the Thors, what my plan here is, it's basically to wait until I'm about, 170 supply-ish, and then max out with Thors. So you have a strong siege tank base, and Hellions, you really can't be attacked into very effectively, and then once you get the Thors, that's when you can really start pushing, because as that subscriber mentioned, Bubastar18, he said that, I hope that was your name. I typically, actually forget that. Gotta quickly finish this up. So, basically what he suggested was to use the Thors as a mobile wall, and so that's what my plan is. Use those Thors as a wall instead of the mass depots that I've been relying on, and then have tanks and Hellions. The other great thing about Thors is that if he goes for Void Rays, your Thors are going to completely decimate those. Yes, Thors do absolutely wonderfully versus Void Rays, despite what you may believe. So thank you, Bubastar18, for those suggestions. As always, guys, I'm very open to suggestions, so if you comment stuff, I'm always going to read it. I always pay attention. Don't worry, at least in my own opinion, I'm not defensive at all about taking advice, so, always feel free if you have a suggestion to leave it. And as you can see, this is the point in the game where scanning becomes very effective, because you really have so much income with the gold base that you don't need to be dropping too many mules yet. So I'm going to be scanning basically for a mass carrier or mass void ray switch, anything really. But as for now, I see that he's still sort of on that immortal stalker mix. So what I'm going to be doing, as you just saw about a minute ago, is throwing up multiple barracks, and those are just to make ghosts. Ghosts are the ultimate response to anything Protoss has, but especially against immortals, it's just very, very effective. If you land those perfect EMPs, you will rip through an immortal army, just like it was mass roaches being sent against your siege tanks. As you can see, more scans here, scanning everywhere to try and find stargates. Don't see any quite yet, but I have a starport just in case. You'll also notice I have 2 planetaries at those 2 choke points by my third base. Well, they're not planetaries yet, but that's my plan. Essentially, if he tries to circumvent my siege tanks and go right for that base that you see on camera right now, the planetary will prevent him from doing that and delay him enough for my siege tanks to get in position. Upgrades still coming along quite nicely, as you can see. Going to get high-sec auto-tracking as well. And now's about the time, I throw up those mass starports anyway, because typically, even if you haven't scouted it, it's always, always, always a distinct possibility, and if you don't have like 5 or 6 starports ready when those carriers or void rays come, you are screwed. Very, very screwed indeed. So, as you can see, I'm still, just powering up off of these 4 bases. Going to be getting some more gas, moving those SCVs over to this base, and of course you want, only 3 in gas, and that's how you do it right there. And now that I've effectively split the map, I feel like I just need to wait until I max out with those Thors, like I said, and I will be completely good to go. So I see him pushing out. to try and do something here, so I will throw up mass depots, just, you know, to delay his attack, try and just make a wall for those zealots, and as you can see, it proves to be quite effective. I don't even actually bother looking at that too much. Now, when I see him move there, I instantly know he's brought so many forces that I can actually go in with my Hellions and kill a bunch of probes at his third base. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I send those Hellions away. They're basically wasted supply at this point in the game, not very useful. Much better to replace that supply with Thors. And I get every single probe at that base. I then split them up just to check for additional bases, and I get some nice scouting information, see his carriers and mothership. As you can see, scanning isn't always going to see it. You need to be scanning everywhere. But with my 5 starports, I will be able to produce Vikings to try and do something there. So I'm going to land EMPs all over his army. Pretty much perfect EMPs there. And his ground force gets completely demolished. And I have pretty much enough turrets right here that I can repel most of these carriers for now. As you can see, I think that, yeah, the Ghost did take off quite a bit of shield energy from a lot of his units. And with these Vikings now popping out, as well as what you're going to see, about 5 or 6 Thors all at once here. Man, that is a sick amount of Thors. With all those Thors and Vikings, I am easily able to repel his air force. So yeah, the Thor transition came just in time. Thankfully, if I didn't have you guys give me those comments, I would have died right there without those Thors. So with my Thors and maxed army with a few Ghosts, I'm able to now push out. We'll be sacking a few Hellions to get some intel. Check his upgrades. I don't think they were too great, but they were respectable, I believe. Anyway, I have a bunch of Thors, Vikings, Ghosts, siege tanks. I have a really, really powerful army, basically. And I'm going to be hugging the wall over here and scanning ahead of my army in order to make sure I don't get caught unsieged and just push right up on his main base. So you're going to want to siege a few tanks at a time, as you can see. Brought some SCVs as well to buffer damage and auto repair. And I'm going to be sieging up here. I'm like, wait, where's this guy's army? And then, as my roommate pointed out, as he was watching me play this game, he's attacking my base over there. I try and get the cancel up, but not quite fast enough. So I decide I'm not going to base race this guy. I'm going to turn around, and I catch a ton of units out in the open here. If you ever find ground forces like this unsupported by Colossi, you don't even need to siege up if there's no Zealots or Colossi. You just mow through that. We'll be starting my 3-3 as well, and the carriers here, as you can see, just pull the siege tanks back, let the Thors and Vikings just obliterate them. Thors just completely demolish the interceptors. The Vikings kill the actual vessels themselves. And, he just GG's out of the game because he knows you can't beat my army. And if you can tell by my keyboard cam right now, I was very excited about this win because it was my first ladder win since August, if you can imagine. Yeah, I've been on a gigantic losing streak. But I'm back. This guy had about 255 wins. And, yeah, that's the end of that game. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Master League Quest episode, and I hope to see you again for another Daily Dose of Ownage.